Hey folks, Lachlan here, speaking to you from just outside of Durban, South Africa, on the 16th of March, 2025. According to my YouTube analytics, I've been posting videos for something like 8 years now, and most of them didn't really get any views or traction until about just over a week ago, when a video that I made, simply speaking off the cuff and uploaded directly without even doing any editing, blew up a little bit and got, when last I checked, almost 25,000 views. Now, as I say, this is rather surprising to me, given that I've been doing this for years and gotten almost no attention. But because of that, I want to take this opportunity to speak to any new viewers or subscribers who might not know what my point is in making content. If you go back through my catalogue, you will see that over time I have been extremely critical of the ANC and the South African political class more broadly. But that is because I want this country to succeed. To be clear, I am South African, born and raised, and I have never been anywhere else. And despite the stereotype that is so often repeated, no, I don't have wealthy family in England or Australia that I can go and live with if things get really bad in this country. Whatever happens here happens to me. So, why do I do this? Why do I make videos? Well, firstly, because I have opinions about things and I like to share them. You may or may not know this if you've seen me before, but I have a disability known as quadriplegic cerebral palsy, which affects movement and muscular control throughout my body and confines me to a wheelchair. I was born with it, and I will live with it until the end of my life. What the disability means is that my opportunities for engagement with the outside world in my local community are extremely limited because South Africa has so many social problems that accessibility for the disabled does not rank highly on the list of problems to solve. So for me, making videos is one way to have, hopefully, a positive impact on those who watch my content. As I said just now, I am often very critical of South African politicians, chiefly the ANC, but also others like the EFF and now the MK. And no, I don't criticize them because I resent being led by black leaders. I don't care what the color of the president of South Africa is. What I care about is how well they do their job. This is what I want for South Africa. I want everyone to have the opportunity to prosper. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I think would need to happen in order for South Africa to improve socially and economically. I'm not saying these things will happen. I'm just a random guy on the internet. I don't have any institutional power to make these changes. But these things are what I think should happen if any of us are going to have a shot at a decent future. Firstly, what I think is that black economic empowerment needs to be cancelled, or if not entirely cancelled, heavily rolled back. I don't care that the stated aim of BE legislation was to redress injustices of the past. We have to look at its actual impact on the South African economy. And the fact is, black economic empowerment has not benefited the majority of South Africans who are black. In reality, the only beneficiaries of black economic empowerment have been those in politics or those with political connections and the ability to pay bribes and manipulate tenders. This idea that South African businesses must comply with black economic empowerment legislation has, in effect, stifled economic growth, thereby limiting the number of jobs created and keeping average South Africans stuck in poverty. I do believe that black South Africans should have the right to try and build their own businesses and create their own prosperity. But it's obvious that black economic empowerment laws have kept this country from progressing or growing in any kind of sustainable way. Think about it. If South Africa's economy were more of a free market without these legislative handcuffs, there would be more businesses started, and who would benefit the most from increased corporate growth? Well, seeing as black South Africans are the racial minority in South Africa, they would benefit from more access to jobs and development opportunities. But such opportunities cannot come with the government looming over anyone who gets successful. Why would you, regardless of your race, start a business with the aim of being successful in whatever you do if, once you reach a certain size, government comes knocking on your door and says, right, we'll take 30% of that, please? No real hard-working, independent thinker is going to put up with that. And that's why we don't see businesses on the scale that we should in a country with the beauty and natural resources that South Africa has. Secondly, what I think should happen is that somehow South Africans as a whole have got to stop seeing race as the primary factor that determines how we interact with one another. Now, before you come at me, this is not an argument I'm making in which I'm trying to tell you to simply get over apartheid. I'm not one of the people who will say that, because I realize that though apartheid ended more than 30 years ago now, 30 years in the historical scheme is not that long of a period. There are people with family who lived and suffered under apartheid who are still alive today. It's not as if it were 100 or 200 years ago. So I would never, as a white person, tell a black person to just get over it. We must acknowledge that apartheid was an intolerant, cruel, and evil system. But we cannot continue to let the wrongs of the past define our present and future. Because if we do, we'll just continue to suffer the way we are right now. We need to find a way to move forward and to see each other as social equals. Because if we don't, we'll just continue to fight. And all those rumors of civil war and violence on a massive scale that you'll often hear behind closed doors, those will eventually become reality. Because if we continue to treat each other poorly, something will give and it will not be pretty. Essentially, what I'm saying is that my hope for South Africa is to one day be able to live in a country that is peaceful, prosperous, and fair, in as much as fairness is even possible in the real world. I do not believe that politicians will provide the solution. And when I say politicians, I'm not just speaking critically of the ANC, the EFF, or the MK. I don't believe in the DA either. I don't believe that any political party in South Africa has the one size fits all solution for our problems. As South Africans, we tend to have this attitude of waiting for somebody else to come and fix our problems for us. But I've realized that if South Africa is ever going to prosper in any way, it is ordinary South Africans who are going to have to toughen up and sort things out on our own. Because, in my view, the political class of South Africa care for themselves and their families and what benefit they can draw out of the system. They don't know what it's like to live as an ordinary South African, or if they ever did, they've clearly forgotten because they've got too comfortable in their ministerial perks and the authority granted to them by their positions. So, what I'm trying to say is that if you are a South African who simply wants to live life to the best of your ability, then I am happy to share a country with you. If you want to attack me on the basis of my race or the privileges you think I have simply because I was born white, then I've got no time for you and you can fuck off. Anyway, as always, I hope that this content will be useful to you in some way. Look after yourselves, take care of each other, and for now, farewell.